Howdy all. Welcome on into Goose Talks Film. I'm your host Goose, of course, and this is a different type of episode here on Goose Talks Film. If you've kept up to date recently, or if you haven't, brief period is last few weeks I had a passing in the family, and I've also become a dad for the second time. So yeah, the schedule's been a bit flipped over because I was wanting to do a lot of pre-recordings whilst also posting weekly to kind of maybe post fortnightly while I didn't do weekly new release reviews or any reviews as such, really, because I wanted to focus on being a dad and being a family man and whatsoever. But yeah, I thought I would sadly do a different episode, a kind of in memoriam slash love letter to one of my all-time favorite actors, which is Val Kilmer. Most people that are film nerds or film buffs do know, and the general people know that Val Kilmer passed away. But if you didn't know, he passed away on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, unfortunately, but it didn't turn out to be a joke. He died at the age of 65. I don't want to say one of the most groundbreaking, but he was such a pivotal actor in the 80s and 90s, specifically the 90s, and we'll go through his stretch that he had in the 90s. And in terms of performances and movies, it is up there with some of the great stretches of careers that you can think of that there is, especially in that period. You had Michael Douglas was turning out awesome movie after awesome movie, Harrison Ford, Kurt Russell, all those actors of that era really just had awesome stretches of movies and different types of movies. You know, some of them dabbled in horror, drama, romance, comedy, action, adventure, history, biographical. And Val Kilmer was definitely in that conversation, in my terms. And, a lot of people always ask me who my favorite actors are. They think I'm going to say the Brandos, the Dustin Hoffmans, the Robert De Niros, the Tom Hanks. And it's just not the case. And a lot of people are surprised when I tell them my top four or my top five. And I mean, Michael Keaton has been my favorite actor for a very, very long time, well over 10, 15 years when I was quite young. Maybe I'll do an episode focused on him before his passing, hopefully, because I do like to do these types of episodes, and this kind of will be kind of like a soft test, a soft rollout, so to speak, of these types of episodes where I maybe just talk about an actor's career. I did actually want to do this just over a year ago with the passing of Carl Weathers, but unfortunately, I just couldn't fit it in terms of all the new release movies I'd already watched and planned reviews on, so I wanted to do them, and I just didn't have the time nor the mental capacity to be able to fit the Carl Weathers one in. So I still want to do a Carl Weathers in memoriam slash career oversight. Not maybe oversight, but you know what I mean. And yeah, I thought I would do Val Kilmer because, it's very, very sad. And it's one of those things where I mentioned earlier that I lost a family member a few weeks ago, and that being my grandpa. We lovingly refer to him as Grumpy. I took it really, really hard. That's why I didn't post for 2 weeks, and then it kind of snowballed into something positive, but also stressful. Not getting into too much, but it wasn't the pitch perfect labor experience or post labor experience. But we do have a healthy child, and I'm very happy to say I'm a dad for the second time. But yeah, losing a family member, or even a pet or a close friend is very different than when an actor or an athlete passes away. And I hate when people compare, saying, I don't know why people put actors on a pedestal and they get sad as if they've lost a family member or a friend. It's a different kind of feeling. It's a different sadness completely. You can't compare them. These are people we don't know in person. We've never met them. We don't know what they're truly like as people. It's one of those things when, it is like when a character you're playing dies in a video game, or just a character in a movie dies, or a TV series. You're invested in these people. You are watching their career unfold in front of your eyes. I mean, especially actors that you see from a young age. Like when I was younger, you had actors like Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, all these people. I mean, she was probably actually not a great example because she was actually in Into the Vampire 10 years before Spider-Man. But you know what I mean? That you see these young actors like Robert Pattinson is actually a prime example. And also Daniel Radcliffe from the Harry Potter crew. Like you grow up with these people. Like I grew up with Harry Potter. They were only a couple of years older than me. And you grow up, you're watching their careers, you're watching these movies, and you're following their careers. So yeah, I'm not saying that I cried or lost sleep over Val Kilmer passing, but it did kind of hit me in a very different way, like I was saying, as if it was very different than a family friend or a family member passing away, even a pet, right? Because, like I said, you don't know these people in person, you don't have a relationship with these people, but it's a different feeling. It's kind of like, oh wow, like I'm not going to see anything new from these people, and they leave a legacy on screen. I think it's kind of unique that you can go back and you can revisit these actors' movies well after they've passed. You can watch movies that you'd never seen of theirs before and live them for the first time and knowing, oh wow, like they put this performance in before they passed and vice versa. So yeah, I hate when people compare that online and people say don't meet heroes and all that. Everyone is truly in their own right to have any opinion on that, but I just take it personally. People say, oh, why you say when this athlete died or when that actor dies? Because it's a different feeling, you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of hard to explain, but I think I'd explain it the best way I could, that it's kind of like, oh, wow, like, I'm not going to see a new Val Kilmer movie. Not that, a lot of us knew that he wasn't going to be able to. And if you have or haven't followed Val Kilmer, he's been battling cancer for a very long time. It'd be probably just under 10 years, I think, when he was first diagnosed, and he gradually lost his voice. Then he had other health issues connected to that, and I think the actual on his death certificate, I think it is said to be pneumonia is the cause of death, which was obviously they connect that with the cancer problems as well. He's been fighting it non-stop. He never got rid of it or went into remission or any of that. It's just been constant battling of the cancer. He lost his voice. If you watch his documentary, or if you haven't, I do recommend watching it. It is now that he's passed, probably. It's quite sad and confronting, but it shows you, what these people go through, and it's really interesting. Like I was saying, that these celebrities and these actors and what have you are very different when you kind of go behind the curtain, I guess, and you get to see what he was like. Because the way that Val was pretty much making his money was doing conventions and appearances and that type of stuff, because he couldn't really act, because he couldn't talk. And I love that Tom Cruise. I'll stick up for Tom Cruise till the cows come home. Yeah, look, Scientology is a heap of shit, but I'm not talking religion in this episode. But I think Tom Cruise has proven that if he likes you and you prove to him that you're really passionate about the job of acting, because Tom Cruise, I mean, he defends acting in the movie business like to the nth degree. Like, this guy just loves the business, and him and Val, although from what I've read, weren't the best of friends, they had like the greatest of respect to each other. And Tom Cruise really fought hard for Val to have an appearance in Top Gun Maverick. That was really cool with how they did Val's voice in that. He obviously well and truly couldn't speak at that point, but they'd grabbed over 1,000 hours of his dialogue from movies, interviews, etc. And it wasn't using AI, to my knowledge, either. This was all actually a person or a team of audio engineers that actually created his voice from samples and made this voice, and it sounded so much like him as well. And I was so glad that we kind of got a goodbye to the Iceman character. It was kind of, because I think they knew that, he wasn't going to be around forever. And mid 60 for someone that's battled cancer and health issues as long as him, it was, getting to that age and being able to have the final goodbye was really good. So, that's kind of just the gist of Val's battles and him passing away and like my feelings on that. But I went a bit off track, but when I was stating earlier, was Michael Keaton my favorite actor of all time. And then you have Matthew Lillard, or Lillard, sorry, however you pronounce it. I think it's Lillard is how Americans pronounce it, but in Australia, we've always pronounced it Matthew Lillard, but it does sound better than Matthew Lillard. But you obviously know him as Shaggy from Scooby-Doo and Stu and all that, and he's lived a very different career than someone like Michael Keaton or Val Kilmer. But probably a big surprise to people, my third favorite was actually Clive Owen, and he's actually probably been, he was my favorite actor probably before Michael Keaton officially was, where I said to myself, no, this guy's my favorite. I saw Clive Owen in the 2004 King Arthur movie at the movies when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I thought, this guy's just got such an awesome screen presence, and he just plays a bad King Arthur character. I just liked him ever since, and I literally, as a kid, just on Foxtel, or back then it was Oster, we just watched as many Clive Owen movies and TV shows as we could. I got into Second Sight, which was a crime TV series that he did in England. So, yeah, then Val Kilmer was always my fourth, and the fifth is always kind of fluctuated between a few people with, people like Kurt Russell, Eddie Murphy. It's kind of a hard-fought fifth position, but those top four have been locked in for a long time. And Val Kilmer, two of his movies are in my top five movies of all time. And he's actually in my favorite movie of all time. He's the lead in my favorite movie of all time. That's 1996's The Ghost in the Darkness. If you haven't seen that movie, I recommend it. If you love action adventure and movies based on true story, and this movie is relatively as accurate as it can be, except for Michael Douglas's character was completely fictional, and he doesn't play a huge role in the movie. It's not like the lead actor was all completely made up. Val Kilmer's character was based on the real person in these events, and a few little things here and there were kind of exaggerated or didn't exist, but all the major plot points really did happen in real life. And if you're into killer animal movies and movies set back in time, this is, I think, early 1900s, late 1800s, I'd surely recommend it. And he's also probably, arguably, one of his best ever performances was in Tombstone. And that is my third favorite movie of all time. It's just such a good performance from him. And I'll touch on later when I go through his movies in a bit of chronological order, about how he missed out on an Oscar nomination and possibly a win. It's a very stacked year in that supporting actor category. But we also talk about him in The Doors as Jim Morrison, wasn't nominated or ever won. And I've read Val's book, I'm Your Huckleberry, or I'll Be Your Huckleberry. I can't remember. Something Huckleberry. Anyway, I forget the line because I've been reading all different versions of what people think it is, and I've kind of melted my brain on which the real one is. But I read his book. Again, if you're a reader and you love autobiographies, it's really interesting. It's not really a autobiography where he dishes the dirt on anyone or, has any headline revelations or anything like that. He talks about himself a lot, which is kind of what you want from an autobiography. And in terms of post-COVID autobiographies that I've read, and I've read quite a few, actually. I think the best ones are Val Kilmer's and Billy D. Williams, who plays Lando Calrissian. Those are the two of the best books because just how they covered their stories without having to drag other people through the dirt, but also not shying away from bringing up incidents and people, all that type of stuff. I think they're very comparable in a very good way. I do recommend them both. Also, Daniel Stearns is really good. Luke Evans is really, really good. So all great autobiographies. But yeah, I thought I would pretty much do this. I'll do a spiel at the start, which kind of has gone a bit longer than I thought, but I'll kind of touch on his career in movies and lightly in TV. Not a lot of work, but and pretty much focus on his big movies and also talk about some things that he brought up in his book as well. It's kind of, like I said, a love letter to Val Kilmer. And if you don't know what a love letter is, it's a very popular thing on YouTube that a lot of people do love letters to movies. It's pretty much just talking about a movie in a very positive way and the effects it had on you and why it's so good, why you like it, all that type of stuff. And it's just pretty much, not so much a thank you, that's probably a bit too much, but in terms of just showing your love for something that you do love and appreciate. So a lot of people don't know this, and to my knowledge, I think it's still a record. It could have been recently overtaken, but in his book, which was published a few years ago, it was still the record. So Val Kilmer graduated from Juilliard, which is one of, if not regarded as the greatest acting school, certainly in America anyway. And yeah, he graduated as the youngest ever person to graduate from Juilliard, which is pretty cool. And he made a joke that the teachers or the professors, whatever you want to call them, would actually make the students refer to the school as the Juilliard because it was so prestigious. So many big famous actors had gone through there, and Val was always brought up as one of the biggest people to ever graduate from Juilliard, not only because he was the youngest ever, but also just the impact he had there and the performances that he put in and what he did not long after graduating as well. So he did a lot of stage work and all that. And his first feature film, which he was the lead in, by the way, was Top Secret, which is a comedy movie. It's kind of like a spoof type movie. And then he was in an episode of ABC After School Specials, which I know nothing about. He was also then the lead in Real Genius, which is another comedy movie, not so much a spoof or a parody, but it is, a very silly, funny movie. And so, excluding the TV episode there, he is in two feature films. He was the lead in both, not big blockbuster movies or award-winning movies by any stretch, but they have two cult favorite movies, especially Top Secret. You listen to a lot of people, look at a lot of people online, they're listing their top 5 favorite Val Kilmer movies. Well, maybe not so much surprisingly, but when I first read it, I was a bit surprised. It was Top Secret's in a lot of people's top 5s. Not saying it's not deserving, but we'll get to Val's run in the 90s and you'll see how stacked it was and how hard it is to do a top 5, which I might actually do at the end of the episode. I might actually list my top 5 Val Kilmer performances / movies. But then we lead on to Top Gun, which he obviously was not the lead in, but he, is always picked as one of the best characters of the film. He's definitely a scene stealer, in my opinion, probably the biggest scene stealer. And that's obviously how he met Tom Cruise. Top Gun, we all know how big of a movie Top Gun is. It's one of the biggest cult movies of the 80s, maybe ever. From the soundtrack, the actors that were in that went on to become global superstars, and just how cool it was. Like, people just thought it was such a cool movie. They wanted to be the pilots, and I think it was actually one of those movies that made applications for the job even higher, which happens a lot. Same as dogs in movies, the adoption rates go up, and etc. etc. This is definitely one of those situations. And he plays obviously Iceman. He's pretty much not so much a villain of the movie, but he's a character that doesn't get along with Maverick, and they butt heads because Iceman thinks that he's dangerous. Because Iceman, he's kind of the cool kind of. Glenn Powell plays obviously a character with no relation to Iceman whatsoever, but he's kind of fills that role in Top Gun Maverick, the cocky, arrogant guy that thinks he's the best, but he's kind of probably a little mixture of Maverick and Iceman too, actually, which I think is a nice touch. And Iceman's he's just such a cool character, and Val Kilmer going from Top Secret and Real Genius to very silly, funny, well-acted roles, though, to Iceman in Top Gun. It's just such a drastic change. It really shows you very early on in Val's career just how versatile that this guy was. Like, he really was so versatile. And then he was in the 1986 TV movie The Murders in the Rue Morgue. I watched this a long, long time ago, and I'm trying to get my hands on it to rewatch again, so I don't know a lot about it. But it is, kind of like a mystery type TV movie. And if you are like me and love TV movies from the 80s and 90s, just the feel of them and the production of them. Like, I've always loved Michael Caine's Jack the Ripper miniseries from, I think it was 87 or 88. It just, the look and the feel, it's real nostalgic, and it's just really cool. It does bring you back. And then he did a TV movie called The Man Who Broke 1,000 Chains, which I have not seen. But then he goes into, again, not the lead role, but probably the most, silly enough, even though the main character's name is literally the title of the film. This is really what cemented Val as a big actor. Even though his two latest big movies he did, he was not the lead. He was not the first on the call sheet. But I'm talking, of course, about Willow. And his Mad Mardigan performance and him in that was, especially in the Sword and Sorcery movie fan groups and all that, they list Mad Mardigan always in the top 5, top 10 best characters of that genre. And obviously the movie's very well loved of Willow. And I'm a big, big fan of the Willow movie. I remember watching it the first time in high school. And ever since then, I watch it probably once or twice a year. And that's why I was so disappointed how garbage the TV show was. So bad that Disney Plus actually took it off Disney Plus, which means that it's never going to see a lot of day again. It's literally going to be vaulted, essentially. And he was in a TV movie with Billy the Kid. He was in a movie called Kill Me Again, which I don't know about. And then this is when we go into the period of Val not only gone back into the lead actor role, which he hadn't done since 1984. So this is a 7-year stretch where he was not the lead in a big or at least medium-level movie. He plays Jim Morrison in The Doors, and he literally poured himself into this role. Like, Val kind of didn't talk so much of himself as a method actor, but I wouldn't be surprised if other people labelled him that, because he really got into the roles of these people. Like, he really did lose weight for this. He, I think, drank excessively, and I think he said he also did drugs as well to really get into the character, which is insane. But it is one of the best adaptation. Oh my god, I can't talk. Best adaptations and portrayals of a musician that you'll ever see. And nothing against Rami Malek at all, but he won the Oscar for Bohemian Rhapsody. I just had a mental blank for Bohemian Rhapsody, which that's a discussion for another podcast. But you compare to Val Kilmer playing Jim Morrison, that he wasn't even nominated for the Oscar. And I know they're completely different eras, different decades, but they just don't hold up. Like you watch Val Kilmer as Jim Morrison in The Doors, and you'd fucking swear to God it's him. And he's actually singing the songs. He sounds like him when he's singing. There was no audio magicry here. That was Val singing, and that was him in the movie. And it is truly, like I said, one of the best portrayals of a musician. Maybe even one of the best real life portrayals you will see. It is such a good performance, and the movie itself is really good. It's maybe not the best biographical film of the 90s, even, but his performance is just amazing. Like, if you haven't seen this movie and you do like movies like Rocketman or Bohemian Rhapsody, Walk the Line is probably a very good comparison in terms of the tone. Obviously, Rocketman being a bit more lighthearted and a bit more positive, even though it does delve into Elton John's problems. These movies kind of delve into the problems, and they really hard. Like, there's not a lot of positive outlook on The Doors or Walk the Line, but Val Kilmer's performance as Jim Morrison is definitely on the level with Joaquin Phoenix as Johnny Cash, which is also one of the greatest musician portrayals you'll ever see, which is very rare company. And then he went in another lead role, but a lesser known movie, but it is quite big in certain states in America. It's called Thunderheart. It is a movie about Native Americans and pretty much what they go through. And Val's really, really good, and his character is very interesting. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I do know when Val went to a lot of conventions, he was very happy when people brought posters or memorabilia from Thunderheart for him to sign, because he always felt as though the movie didn't get as much love as he wanted it to, because it was a passion project for him, and he did have Native American heritage in him. So, and he really wanted this to kind of put that on the map in terms of Native Americans and how they're treated and how they've been treated in the past and all that. So another movie I recommend. It's probably a bit harder to get in terms of accessibility. And then he was in True Romance, which wasn't a lead role for him, but is a very cult movie. The Real McCoy, which I've never seen. And then, he hadn't been a lead actor for a year, but he had done 2 movies in between Thunderheart and, of course, Tombstone, which is Val Kilmer's best performance. And I was just talking about how good his Jim Morrison is. Him as Doc Holliday, I mean, how this guy wasn't nominated for an Oscar. And I know it was a stacked year. Like, I know that it was a stacked year in supporting actor. Tommy Lee Jones won for The Fugitive, and I'm not angry that he was nominated, but you throw in Ralph Fiennes for Schindler's List, right? Of the nominees, best performance of that group. It's not even an argument, I'm afraid. But Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday in Tombstone wasn't even nominated? That's on par with Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List. It really should have been between those two. It really should have been the closest best supporting actor race there's ever been. I'm sorry, but it just should have been. I can't get over how he was not nominated, but I don't want to dwell on the awards and all that, because Val didn't really seem too phased about that in his book when he spoke about it. He did touch on it briefly, but the dedication again for him to lose weight and to look so gaunt and to act like he really was dying from tuberculosis. And when he, spoiler alert, when he does pass away at the end of the film from tuberculosis, and it's a really, really nice scene where, and it's maybe not that clear unless you're really paying attention to the film, is when he's in bed and he says his goodbyes to Kurt Russell's character, Wyatt Earp, and he knows he's about to die. He looks at his shoes and he kind of looks surprised, and it kind of cuts away. It's because he always thought he was going to die wearing his shoes. He always thought he was going to die in a shootout or maybe being blindsided or whatever it was. He always thought he was going to die with his shoes on and not die from a disease in bed because he was always kind of getting into trouble, putting himself there because he was the best gunslinger. Certainly in this film anyway. But also another thing that I found out about this was to replicate someone dying from tuberculosis and what they were going through was he actually was laying on a bed filled with ice. So he was shaking and he was very uncomfortable. Just the dedication is just, and some of the one lines that he has in Tombstone, and it's just a brilliant fucking cast. You have a look at the cast in Tombstone. If you have not seen the film, look at the cast on IMDb and you look at all the recognizable names that either were stars at the time or went on to become stars. It'll blow your mind. Like Thomas Hayden Church has a small role in this. Michael Rooker has a small role in this. I can't think of his name right now, but the actor from Avatar and Don't Breathe was a small actor in this. Then you have the main cast of Sam Elliott. You also have the late, great Bill Paxton. Obviously, you have Kurt Russell, who was also, like I said earlier, on an amazing stretch of movies in this period. And you obviously have Val Kilmer, and you obviously have Michael Biehn, and is it Stacey Keach who's always getting mixed up? I think it's Stacey Keach. There's another actor I always get mixed up with. I think it's Stacey Keach. I really hope it is. As the bad guys, and the scene with Michael Biehn, who plays Johnny Ringo, and Val's Doc Holliday is Johnny Ringo's in the bar, everyone's drinking, it's kind of packed with people, he's acting really cool, flipping his gun around, like, because, he's regarded as one of the best gunslingers along with Doc, but yet Doc kind of has that reputation because he's just doesn't give a fuck, he's arrogant, he's not really fearful, but then Doc Holliday's drinking from like a metal cup, and he starts to do flips and tricks with that to pretty much say fuck you to Johnny Ringo. It is just cool character development. It's just so cool. Tombstone is just such a cool movie, and it's not just a Western. It's just so good. Like, you will be emotionally invested in all the characters in this film, and Val, it just steals the show. And that's nothing against Kurt Russell, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Michael Biehn. Like, that just goes to show how good this fucking cast was and how good this movie is. It's just so good. It is Val's best performance by far, and I would probably say it's his best movie. Even though a movie I'll touch on a bit later is my favourite movie of all time, I can separate best and my personal favourite, right? I've always been able to do that, and I'll touch on that a bit later. But yeah, so then he did a small movie called Wings of Courage, which I have not seen, and then, of course, probably not his best role, but I would probably say his most recognisable and his biggest general public role is Batman and Batman Forever. And obviously, Michael Keaton, my boy, my favourite actor of all time, he'll always be my favourite Batman in Batman and Batman Returns. But I will say, Val's Bruce Wayne is probably my favourite because he has the perfect balance of being a bit arrogant, and also being a bit of a womanizer, but not too much, but also being a bit of a loner outsider type. Whereas Michael Keaton really lent into the outsider type vibe, right? Like, when he was at that party, he was very, dark and mysterious and not very sociable, and he wasn't really a womanizer or pretended to be, whereas Christian Bale did. He wasn't any of that at all. And you have then, someone like Christian Bale, who, again, he was a bit of the loner and all that, a bit of a mixture, but then he also pretended to be the womanizer to put a facade up. Whereas Val's Bruce Wayne, I don't think was really putting on a big act when it came to, I don't want to say a womanizer, but he definitely was a bit more flirtatious, maybe is the word I would use. But then also, like I said, had a great balance of being a bit mysterious and unwilling to let other people in. Whereas Michael Keaton was well over here, right? Like, he secluded himself, rarely ever didn't have any friends, lived in a big giant mansion by himself, bit of a smart ass. Whereas, Val's Bruce Wayne, his Batman might not have been perfect in terms of his voice and how he kind of moved and whatever, but it's still very good. Please don't get me wrong. In terms of, like, comparing to George Clooney, shits over Clooney like everyone else does. But, Val's Batman performance as the Batman, like in the Cape and Cowl I'm talking about, would be mid-pack, I would say. I would say Michael Keaton's and Robert Pattinson's are the best in costume Batman. Um, Whereas Christian Bale have always put Batman and his Bruce Wayne kind of both in the middle. I don't think they're either top or either bottom. But I think Val's Bruce Wayne is probably my favorite, honestly. And Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne was very different as well. And we didn't get to see a lot of it either because he didn't have his own standalone movie. So it's kind of hard to compare him, really. And Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is kind of like even more of a gothic emo version of Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, where he has none of the flirtatious or the womanizer playboy type character like at all. Like at all. He leans into the loner stuff even more than Michael Keaton does. But I think, I don't know, I do like a gritty kind of depressed Batman as well. I just always thought that Michael Keaton's was just a tad more balanced than what Rob Pattinson's is. But in terms of the Batman performance, I think Michael Keaton and Rob Pattinson are definitely the equal as the best. But in terms of Bruce Wayne, I think Val is probably the top, honestly, the top Bruce Wayne. I think he had the perfect balance for me. And it's always interesting to hear other people's opinions on who they consider the best Batman and Bruce Waynes. And it's really interesting because a lot of people, if they were listing all the actors from best to worst and then separated Batman and Bruce Wayne, I don't think I've ever seen anyone have them all line up. Like, in terms of, Rob Pattinson, best Batman, best Bruce Wayne. Ben Affleck, best Batman. But it would all be uneven. And I think that's really good because there is such a difference between Bruce Wayne when he's in the cape and cowl to Bruce Wayne being Bruce Wayne in public or in front of people or just being with Alfred. I think it's, really interesting. I'd love to know your comments down below or in a review or even a DM. I just love people's opinion, especially on Batman because it's such a passionate thing for me. I'm a comic book nerd, so I always love the Batman discussion because we've had so many different, not only performances and actors, but also the movies have all been different from each other and different adaptations of the comic books. So, and that includes voice actors as well. Like Bruce Greenwood, I would consider one of the best Batman as well, even though he only lent his voice to a couple of projects. And yeah, that's pretty much the Batman Forever stuff. But yeah, I mean, and we know Batman Forever, it's kind of one of those movies where you love it or you hate it. You have Batman and Batman Returns, which I consider in the conversation for the best Batman movies, along with the Dark Knight and the Batman. Because Batman Forever is definitely silly. It definitely leans into the toyetic effect. Not as much as Batman and Robin, because Tim Burton was still a producer on this, and I think he still wanted them to pull it back a bit, but then he wasn't involved with Batman and Robin, and then Joel Schumacher just went crazy with the whole toyetic theme and tone. But Batman Forever is fun. I do like Jim Carrey's performance as a Riddler. Well over the top, but it does fit the tone of the film, I do have to say. And Tommy Lee Jones is a terrible, terrible, terrible Harvey Two-Face. Like, terrible. That's not Two-Face. It's just not. And Billy D. Williams they should have kept his promise to him when he was playing Harvey Dent in the 89 Batman. He was always promised that he was going to obviously fulfill the character and play Two-Face. And they replaced him without telling him. He found out through news that Tommy Lee Jones had been cast. And this is from me reading Billy D. Williams' book as well. So I would have loved to have seen Val's Batman / Bruce Wayne go head to head with Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent / Two-Face. That just would have been such a cool on-screen duel, and the difference of acting, and it just would have been wicked. And it's a shame we never got that, but yeah, it is what it is. And yeah, Batman Forever is fun. Then you have what a lot of other people consider Val's probably not his best performance. A lot of people would consider this the best movie that he's in, and that's of course Heat, which is also the highest rated Val Kilmer movie on IMDb. Yeah, it's one of the biggest critical movies of the 90s. A lot of people consider it one of the best movies of the 90s. Excuse me. It was released the year I was born, as well as Batman Forever, sorry. I'm struggling to talk. It is very late at night because this is when I get to do these recordings late at night when everyone else is asleep. Heat. It is a very long movie, but it is a very good movie that delves into so many different characters. I mean, it's got Robert De Niro, it's got Al Pacino. Just had a complete mental blank. Obviously, it's got Val Kilmer. They're your big three. A lot of other big actors in it as well. It's such a ride, and you really do get invested in the characters. And it's not just because of my love for Val as an actor, but I was definitely so invested in Val's character in this. It's such an interesting character, and the dynamics and relationship he has with the main characters as well. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. If you love good action, I'd probably say this is an action suspense movie. Is definitely what I put it down to, and obviously drama as well. But if you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. And then we go on to another film that Val didn't really want to do, which is kind of why this movie had a lot of issues behind the scenes that were nothing to do with him. There was some other separate stuff with the director and the producers, and also stuff that involved him and Marlon Brando and David Thewlis, and the director that ended up taking over from the creator of the film. But that's, again, discussion for another podcast. If you want to watch the documentary about this movie, look it up. Can't remember what it's called, but there is a documentary about this that delves into the entire backstory of what a shit show it was. So originally, Val, I think there was like Bruce Willis and James Woods and all that were attached at different periods, but they wanted Val for David Thewlis' part, which was the lead of Island of Dr. Moreau. Even though he's not on the poster, it is Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer. But at that time, David Thewlis was far from being a mainstream actor or a household name. Obviously, Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer were both very big actors, as one longer than the other. But Val didn't really want to do it. He wanted more money for pretty much less screen time, and they couldn't really afford it. So they said, okay, well, you take this role, pretty much third on the call sheet, and we'll still give you good money for less filming time. So he took it on. He had a big disagreement with the new director that came on. The original one got shafted, but he had a bit of creative differences with Val. But the director that came on was worse, especially him and Marlon Brando didn't get along, the director, I mean. And David Thewlis was kind of stuck in between, but he was also, I've briefly heard him talk about it, and it was very mentally draining on him as well. But he remained friends with Val, not close friends or best friends by any stretch, but they did keep in touch, and they did have a very big, strong mutual respect for each other. So, yeah, Island of Dr. Moreau, there's really not a lot to say to it. It was a failed sci-fi /action /light horror movie that the original concept and screenplay was very interesting to me. Obviously, this being a remake of a very older film, and it just took a nosedive, and too many hands, too many cooks in the kitchen, unfortunately, and a lot of egos on set. And Val did say that he apologized for his behavior on this set, and that he was going through a very messy divorce at this time as well, and he wasn't taking it mentally very well. So he did own it, but he also said that the director was at fault as well with how he talked and treated them, and how he pretty much was only going through the motions as a director. And I think Val was still quite passionate about this movie, even though originally he didn't want to do it. But then you go on to my favorite movie of all time, and this was very briefly after Island of Dr. Moreau, so he was kind of disillusioned with acting. Not that he wanted to quit or he hated it or anything like that, but he was, very mentally exhausted. He wasn't sure if he wanted to do a movie this quick, and he'd already turned down something crazy like 10, 15 million for Batman and Robin because he wanted a break. He wanted a bit of a holiday. So he turned that down and did Island of Dr. Moreau, unfortunately. But then he did The Ghost in the Darkness. Like I briefly touched on earlier, it's a movie with Val Kilmer, Michael Douglas. It is just such a good movie. The music is phenomenal. It's a great balance of action, suspense, biographical. Like I said, this is over 90% in terms of historical accuracy. The visual effects are really good. It's kind of, in terms of the man-eater lines, it's kind of less is more, but you do see them enough where it's not a situation where, a great white movie where you barely see the great white, so it's not really a great white movie. This definitely does tick the boxes of being a killer animal movie for sure. You do see the lines enough, and Val's really good in it. It's, like I said, not his best performance. It's probably not his best movie, but I just love this film, and then realizing also afterwards that, what Val went through on the Island of Dr. Moreau, and then to be able to do this movie, and then he kind of found his passion again, and he loved filming in Africa and all that, and he loved filming with Michael Douglas as well. They had a very good relationship. And he went on to another passion project of his, which he actually worked on the screenplay and the concept for this film, but he wasn't credited because I think he did a lot of the concept work. And then it was The Saint, which was obviously a remake of a much older TV series from I think 30, 40 years earlier, maybe 30 years earlier. Very cool. This kind of really shows off Val's versatility as well, because he plays a con man, maybe is the best description, and he kind of impersonates or comes up with characters and different versions of these people, kind of like a real life fake ID, right? And it's this cool action movie. It's very much 90s, and I mean that in a positive way, the way that it's filmed, the cinematography, the production value, the music, the filming techniques used. If you love mid to late 90s movies with how they're filmed and, like I said, the production value, this definitely fits into that. And it's just a very cool, I'll probably call this an adventure / action movie. Adventure being probably the stronger genre. But it's very cool. It's very fun. If you want a very cool, light-hearted action adventure movie or adventure action movie to watch, then I do recommend this. It's relatively easy to get your hands on. And then we go into Val's only ever performance as one of lead actors in an animated film. And that is, of course, Prince of Egypt, where he voices Moses and also God. And nice little trivia about that was they wanted Val to pretty much voice Moses and God as they're obviously not the same person, but they shared a lot of things, and they wanted them to be very comparable. And they thought, why not get Val to do both and just change his voice ever so slightly? And I think it was a very nice touch. And a lot of people, like I said, had this movie in their top 5 Val Kilmer movies and performances as well. This is a very well-loved DreamWorks movie. It's probably not one of my favorites, but it's very, very good. In terms of the voice acting, you have Ray Fiennes, Val Kilmer, Jeff Goldblum. Very good cast. Animation's great. The music's great. Obviously tells a great story. Even if you're into religion or not, it's a very good drama adventure animated film. Like, it's not your typical light-hearted, upbeat type movie. It kind of leans more into the Don Bluth type, right? Where we're telling a story, and we don't give a fuck if it is lighthearted or if it's not lighthearted. If it's going to be super dramatic and break your fucking heart like Land Before Time, then that's what we're going to fucking do. So, Prince of Egypt is a very good movie. It's kind of a movie that you'd appreciate or enjoy more maybe in your, like, just pre-teens or early teens, because you kind of would understand a lot more of the themes and the undertones. But then, as a young kid, you'd probably enjoy it as well, because it does have music, it has great animation, cool looking characters. So it's a movie that will always live on for different reasons, and that's great for Val's legacy as well. At First Sight, which is kind of like a romance, one of only Val's like true proper romance movies. Look, I'm not a massive fan of romance movies or anything like that, but it was a very cool concept / pop plot line, and he's a very good leading man in romance movies. I'm surprised he honestly didn't do more, to be honest, because he's a good-looking guy. He's very quirky in like a good-looking way, and I'm surprised he didn't do more, but maybe that's what he didn't want to do. Then he did movies like Joe the King, Pollock, Red Planet, which I think really kickstarted, along with Island of Dr. Moreau, it kickstarted the, I guess, rumors or perception that Val was hard to work with and was a piece of shit on set, which turned out to really not be fully true, because a lot of actors had Val's back when they didn't have to. They wouldn't have just come out and said so for, there was no reason for it. But Robert Downey Jr. and David Thewlis and Michael Douglas, all these actors came to Val's defense. But on Dr. Moreau and Red Planet, Val, I think, again, a bit like on Dr. Moreau, he was doing movies he didn't really want to do, but the roles were starting to dry up and the movies he wanted to do were starting to dry up, which happens to over 60-70% of actors. Rarely do actors stay on top for more than 10-15 years. Like, it's not as common as you think it is. And by on top, I mean top level, first on the call sheet, lead roles in big movies in terms of box office, but also critically as well, not just commercially. And it was starting to dry up for him because, movies like At First Sight, Joe the King, Pollock, they weren't either of those things. So he did Red Planet, him and Tom Sizemore, who also has a reputation, but more so confirmed, of being very difficult to deal with. And yeah, that was Tom Sizemore. They butted heads quite a bit. My dad actually knew someone who was the, can't remember if it was the key grip or the dolly grip on this film. And he said that he could tell that there was so much tension because not only Val, but Tom as well were not so much rude, but they're very abrupt to the crew and all that. But it stemmed from those two butting heads, and they just got in pretty much really bad moods. And it's kind of a shame. And Val kind of regretted that as well. Then this is where Val's career started to really dry up, and he was really not getting lead roles in anything decent. And when he was getting lead roles, they were in low budget. Very bad, rubbish type movies. Not really anything of note. I mean, Mindhunters is actually quite a fun movie. It's by no stretch a great movie, but it's very fun. It's a really cool whodunit. But he would be 4th, 5th, 6th on the call sheet. But he was the biggest, at the time, he was probably the biggest name in the film. Christian Slater, he was washed up by this point as well. So they were probably the two biggest actors in this movie. Then you have like other actors that went on to do things after this. But yeah, and then, he was in an episode of Entourage, and he also did Alexander, which not only him, but Colin Farrell and Angelina Jolie and all that, they thought it was going to be it. Like when they all got the scripts for this, they all signed on. They met with the producers, the cast, and the director, and started filming. They thought, "Oh shit! Like this is gonna make hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is gonna win us awards." Like, and this isn't just one or two people thinking. This is the cast and the crew all thinking as a collective that this movie is going to be huge in terms of commercial and critically. And it bombed them both. It's a very boring film. Val plays Alexander's dad. So again, he would have been probably 4th, 5th on the call sheet, I would say, behind Colin Farrell, Angelina Jolie, Anthony Hopkins. Very good cast, and very cool concept. I think Alexander would make for another great movie or even a miniseries. Very interesting person who lived a very interesting life and a big part of history as well. And then you go into Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which critically was adored. Didn't make a crap ton of money, but him and Robert Downey Jr. became very close friends after this. And it's got a 7.5 on IMDb. A lot of people love it. They say it's probably his best movie after 2000, which I'll be hard to disagree with. It's a very fun movie. It's underrated, but if you watch it, you would like it. Then a few years of mediocrity. Then he was in Deja Vu with Denzel Washington. Again, would have been 4th or 5th on the call sheet, but he was still part of a really cool movie, and this movie killed it at the box office. And at this point, he was also, I believe, starting to get into stage more, and a bit later on, after this time period, more into the 2010s, he was doing Mark Twain, which was a one-man show that he pretty sure he wrote, produced, and directed, and that got critical acclaim. And he was also working on a movie about Mark Twain that never come to fruition because of health issues and money and all that type of stuff, unfortunately. But he did Deja Vu. Again, a few years of nothing. He was in an episode of like Numbers, and he was in a miniseries called Comanche Moon, where Carl Urban said he was just always in awe of Val Kilmer on set and how challenging it was, but in a good way. And a very underrated film and underrated performance because it was a low-budget affair, but it is it is a cult classic. Like, it has a big, big fan base, and that's Felon from 2008 with him and Stephen Dorff. He plays an inmate that kind of, I wouldn't say the voice of reason, but he's a guy that kind of gives advice to the main character, and he's very intimidating in this. Like, my dad watched this, and he saw Val Kilmer's name in the credits, and he thought, oh, cool. Like, he's a big Val Kilmer fan. Like, he loves Tombstone and The Doors and all that. And then he messaged me at about the 55-minute mark, and he's like, oh, so Val must not be in this very much because I haven't seen him yet. And I'm like, are you sure? I'm pretty sure Val comes in earlier. And I'm pretty sure Stephen Dorff talks him in the cell at this point. And Dad goes, wait. He's like, that's him. And he sends through a picture. I'm like, yeah, that's Val Kilmer, Dad. And he goes, oh my God. Like, he didn't recognize him. And that's a good thing. He put on weight at this point. for the role or life, I'm not sure. He never touched on that in his book. And also, he voiced Kit in the remake Knight Rider TV series that only lasted one season, got cancelled. That went from 2008 to 2009. He had a small role in Bad Lieutenant Port of Call, New Orleans with Nicolas Cage. And again, a lot of years of mediocrity, a few cameos here and there. He voiced in a Spider-Man game, Edge of Time, which is really cool. Oh, I didn't actually touch on, he hosted SNL in the 90s. If you don't know, I'm a massive SNL fan. I've always wanted to work on an SNL podcast. So if you want to jump on a co-host a SNL podcast with me where we review episode by episode, which would go on for so long because there's 50 seasons, let me know. Hit me up. If you're Australian, American, it doesn't matter. If you're a big fan and you have knowledge of the show and you're able to watch every episode, hit me up. I'd love to do that. But he was actually quite good in that. He was in a movie called Seven Below, which was absolute garbage. I remember I rented this from my local DVD rental shop back in 2012. I was in year 11 and I watched it and it was absolute garbage. He voices in Pixar's Planes or Disney's Planes. Can't remember which studio. Episode of Psych. Episode of Robot Chicken. He was in Snowman. Michael Fassbender, which a lot of people thought was going to be the next big mystery murder thriller movie, and it kind of was very lackluster. It was very disappointing, I have to admit. I remember being very excited for this, and it was boring. It wasn't garbage or anything like that. It was just very boring. And then an underrated horror movie where he's on the poster and he's featured as the main character. He's not the main character, but he plays an important role in the film, is The Super, a horror movie that has a really cool twist. And he's not in it a lot, but it's an impactful performance. And you can tell this is when he starts to get ill because he's very, very skinny in this film. He's unrecognizable. And then he obviously did a couple of years of mediocrity, but he wasn't doing much at all because of his voice. He did his documentary, he wrote his book, and his last credited film is Top Gun Maverick, which I think is just so cool. It's very, romantic. It's just such a cool little final note in his career. And I've gone on a lot longer than I thought. I've gone on for nearly an hour, but I did waffle on a little bit. But that's Val's career. And I would love to know your top 5 Val Kilmer movies or performances, or if you want to separate them. If you want to do the top 5 Val Kilmer performances and then do the top 5 Val Kilmer movies, they could be different. Mine probably would be as well. I would think about mine, and then I'll also reply to people's with my top 5s. I think we'd cool discussion to have if you want to comment on a social media post that I post when I'm promoting this episode, or if you want to comment on YouTube, or if you want to leave a review wherever you listen to this podcast on any platform. That would be really cool. So just send me a direct message if you just want to have one discussion about it. That would be really cool. And that's the late great Val Kilmer, and I would love to do more of these episodes. Not always about late great actors after they've passed away. Like I said, I would love to do a Carl Weathers one, which I wanted. That was going to be the first one about 13 or 14 months ago. Didn't come to fruition. But I'd love to do one on my favourite actors as well. And if you want any actors I want to do an episode like this on, please let me know. If it's an actor that's done enough work to cover and I can actually make sure I can or have watched movies, TV shows of them in the past, please let me know. But that's Val's career, and I do recommend reading his book and or watching his documentary on Prime Video. Very eye-opening stuff, very confronting, but you will respect him and respect his career by the end of it for sure. But I've gone on for nearly an hour now, so it's a lot longer than I wanted it to be. So I'm going to wrap it up here and leave it here. But thanks so much for listening for this long. This is probably one of the longest episodes I've ever done, but I'm very passionate about film, very passionate about Val Kilmer as well, as a performer, as a person. Get to know him a lot, reading his book and watching his documentary. So, I'll leave it here. And, always what to do. Support your local cinemas. Make sure you watch those movies. And I'll see you next time.